You don't have a guy with a pipe in his mouth sticking his head in there to see how stinky it is. You go, oh, well, that's a bad idea.
That's it. How do you know the ventilation is complete?
Well, but if there's any kind of breeze and you've got two hatches open, and this is me just, making a presumption, I would presume that they would open hatches that were on opposite ends of the ship from each other to allow a breeze to come through and pull the fumes out. Mm-hmm. Common sense would say, I'm going to stand upwind of all of this, and everybody just hang out on this one area of the ship and wait for it all to come out before we do anything, rather than let's get onto the boat and hang out and wait at a distance.
That's my thought process too. At least for some of the people. I understand maybe let's tow this lifeboat along with my wife and daughter. Yeah. So that maybe a couple of crew, first mate or something.
To keep an eye on him and help him out.
If something were to happen, sure. But he owns such a big stake of this thing. And I guess I just don't see why everybody would abandon ship just to ventilate out.
And maybe not everybody did. Maybe the captain stayed behind, and then after the lifeboat broke away and they went all off to their hideous fate, he decided to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Well, okay, wait. Let's back up on that. If there's one person left on the ship and they lose the lifeboat. Is it or is it not possible for one guy at the helm to turn that ship around?
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I want to try and keep this on.
Maybe they left the 2-year-old daughter on the ship.
Right. All of these things don't explain then. There was plenty of food. There was a lot of water. Assuming that the seas were even remotely calm, so you're the only person on a ship. Yeah, that stinks. Right? But you've got food, you've got water, and you've got shelter. You're just going to stay put and assume that somebody's going to see you, because somebody's going to see you. Because somebody will come along.
Because you're in a sea lane. You're in a shipping lane.
Yeah, and the whole thing is, even if you're the sole survivor on the ship,
you stay on the ship.
You stay on the ship because I would anyway. Because just the way it was going on, just randomly by itself, it was headed towards the coast of Europe.
Yeah.
So it's headed towards Portugal.
Yeah.
It would have hit Portugal or Spain or something, eventually. And so what's the hurry to get off the ship?
Yeah.
The other thing about leaving while it ventilates is the main hatch to the hold was secured. It was closed. So if you want to ventilate that out, wouldn't you want to open the big hatch up especially?
Oh, to the alcohol. So
the main hatch.
Because the other hatches were open, right?
Yeah, they were open.
They were taking water.
There's two of them, right?
But you would open all of the hatches, right?
I would think you would.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Occam's razor here, though. Is that I'm going to guess that those hatches are using metal hinges.
So you're thinking spark?
So you're worried about spark. So you do the fewest number possible to get ventilation through this. So let's just open two. Let's not take the chance of open the others really quick and causing a spark and setting this off.
Yeah, that's
a
possibility.
I don't hold that this is the way it happened, but I'm just looking I can see why you would only open two.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
that's fair. So especially if you pop those open for ventilation purposes anyway, they're already open, and that's when you notice the alcohol. So it's let's
not do anything else.
Leave enough alone. I could imagine that what I would do is I would probably pick the downwind hatch, and I would grab a piece of canvas, maybe even one of the sails, and rig up sort of a cover around it to catch the wind and shove it down into below decks and sort of push all that stuff out. Which is what probably your sensible sailor would do.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing makes me think about, we've all done it. We've all had gas barbecues that were on, but not lit, and you realize that, oops, I left the gas on when I turned,
I'll smoke a cigarette.
I'm just going to go walk away and hang out for a while. Everybody knows you just don't mess with that stuff.
You just let it disperse.
So the other problems with the alcohol theory is that the crew of the Del Gracio, they went below decks, and none of them reported smelling any alcohol. When they got to Gibraltar, lots of people went onto that ship and poked around, and nobody smelled any alcohol. Nobody did in Genoa either.
But that would evaporate.
Yeah, 10 days later, don't you think it would have kind of dissipated?
Well, here's the thing, though, is that those barrels is they had a pretty considerable amount of alcohol in each of those 9 barrels, and so seep out of those barrels. So if they didn't smell it, so if if say they loaded it in New York, it immediately starts seeping, and then sometime, let's say it's going to take at least a couple of days to evaporate. Mm-hmm. So that would be less than a month, and the entire contents of a barrel of alcohol somehow seep out completely. That seems like a really short amount of time.
Well, and the other problem is when we read the accounts that say that the barrel is empty, does that mean bone dry empty, or it's got a little bit left in the bottom, but it's empty?
Yeah, that's one of those things where, I don't know. And of course, when they found these, that was after the whole court of, they had a big inquiry at Gibraltar about that. And so when they found them empty at Genoa, I don't know if they reported back to the authorities in Gibraltar. I mean, obviously somebody made a note of it and told somebody else. But
well, and how long was it between when they were found and that cargo was offloaded? Another week or so?
Oh, months.
Months. Okay. Yeah. Well, then there's another problem with how fast does the alcohol come out of the barrel, is that if it's slowly leaking, but people are coming in and out of this ship constantly checking stuff out and looking at it, then no wonder it's ventilating and nobody's smelling it.
I wonder also if one of the problems came from the fact that the captain was so anti-alcohol. So you can think, like, if he was like, all right, I'm a little iffy that we're even transporting this, we're just going to lock it up, keep it under lock and key while we're transporting it.
So it never gets
ventilated while he's the boss, and then they think, oh, well, I guess we should just check on it or something. So they check on it, and they're like, oh, crap, we got to ventilate this out. But once the other people are taking over, they don't really care so much, or it's nicer weather or whatever, so it's getting better ventilated, so things are kind of ventilating out as it's...
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean...
Yeah, I'd like to advance another theory, which is it's possible that there was never any alcohol in those barrels to begin with.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because
that's interesting.
Because red oak is so unsuitable for that kind of a use. It seems unlikely the manufacturer of the alcohol would have used red oak barrels to put alcohol in.
Especially for just 9 of them. Right?
Yeah,
unless they were just ran out and, hey, Billy, quick, go get us 9 more barrels. And they just filled them.
And that is possible, yeah.
Because red oak is used for grains and dry stuff and things like that, because it's okay there. It's just not with liquids, right?
Yeah, as far as I know. And
okay.
So, well, I think it's entirely possible that some longshoremen in New York who were in charge of loading the boat probably just said, "Hey, we need to pilfer some of these." And how many barrels can you round up in short order? 9. Okay, stick them in there, and we're just gonna spirit these things off and sell them or drink them ourselves.
Things do disappear in port on a regular basis, or at least they used to.
Yeah.
Not so much today with barcodes, but
Right.
And again, like I said, nobody was smelling any alcohol. But so again, that casts a little bit of doubt on the alcohol. The alcohol theory is still the strongest one. But even so, their behavior was a little bit inexplicable.
Yeah, there's definitely some holes in that.
So I wonder if there's like a mix of theories that could kind of explain this, right?
Like an alcoholic kraken?
I was going to go with an alcoholic water spout.
Yeah. No, I mean, the sort of idea that maybe it was a specific loaf of bread was that kind of horrible hallucinogenic mold and they ate it. And that's the reason that the crew that took over didn't have that problem, is because, these other loaves of bread didn't have it. It was just the one or the couple. So they're hallucinating, or maybe they've got cabin fever, or maybe there's some kind of unrest happening. And on top of that, this alcohol thing happens, so everybody kind of thinks it's best to just leave.
Impaired judgment, I believe, is what you're going for. Yeah, they kind of
have a sort of an impaired judgment for one reason or another.
Yeah.
They decide, all right, we're going to get on this lifeboat. The best idea is to just get on this lifeboat. And that rope looks pretty strong, so we'll just drag ourselves behind it, and surely we'll be able to get back on. That's not a problem.
And we won't bother with tying it to the boat. I can just hang on to this.
Yeah, I know.
Don't worry about it. I'm strong.
Or, wasn't the rope... They found the rope.
Yeah,
it was frayed.
Dangling in the water. It was frayed.
So, so maybe it just, broke. There was a big swell and it broke. It snapped in half. Or maybe the Kraken cut it there.
The Kraken? Yeah. Maybe a big shark bit it in two.
Yeah, I think there's the potential for a merging of a couple of these things, but it's...
Well, let's go completely off track for a second.
Yeah.
I saw, and I don't know if you came across, if either of you came across this, but I saw something somebody was purporting that one of their theories was correct, and that's why everybody got on a lifeboat, and was citing something that I couldn't track it down anywhere else. That a month later, a lifeboat was found south of that area with 2 skeletons on it, one of whom was wrapped in an American flag.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a little variant on that in David Williams' book called Seaquake.
Is that where that came from?
He said that 5 months after their disappearance,
That's the one.
5 highly decomposed bodies were found tied to 2 rafts off the coast of Spain. One body was wrapped in an American flag. So tied to 2 rafts, I'm not really sure, because they took off on a lifeboat. Maybe somewhere in their journeys in a lifeboat, they came across a couple of rafts and tied themselves to it. I don't know, but so it could have been anybody's body.
It's too bad, and it's too bad that they had just ported recently.
Well,
didn't they have in the log? It said they.
It said they made Santa Maria, but it didn't say whether or not they actually went ashore.
I kind of wonder, maybe there was some kind of sickness, right? Maybe somebody had the measles, or I don't know, Spanish flu.
Something,
where they didn't want to catch it, so some of them abandoned ship and some of them killed themselves overboard. This is another one of those ones where the possibilities are literally endless.
Yeah, and actually, I like that, because sickness is something that I have not come across in any of the reading. And it may have been that they just, this is not unheard of, as somebody says, this boat is cursed, it's making us sick and we have to get out of here. And we've just put, Jimmy and Sammy overboard to a burial at sea. Let's get on the boat and get away from this shit before it makes us sick, not understanding how diseases work. And it's too late. The couple that are already infected then infect the rest of them.
Well, I guess
it's kind of plausible.
Even with that description, right, of one of them was wrapped in an American flag, that speaks very deeply to me of that person was dead. That was a corpse when they departed, right? That wasn't somebody who wrapped themselves in an American flag. They didn't take the American flag with them. That was a corpse, and that they were going to do something with it, and something went wrong. I don't know.
It may be that, or just maybe they on the way overboard, they grabbed the ship's flag to use as a blanket or a sail.
That's true.
And the guy was just sleeping in the, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
And speaking of the lifeboat, this is another thing that's inexplicable, is the size of the lifeboat, putting 10 people in the lifeboat.
Do you know the size of the lifeboat?
I couldn't find out anything definitive, but I found a picture of a scale model from some maritime museum. And the lifeboat is mounted transversely in the middle of the boat across the cargo hatch.
Transversely means sideways.
Sideways. In other words,
it's left to right, not front to back.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that you can slide it one way or another off the ship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. And so it's mounted right side up, and the beam of the ship is 26.5 feet. And so in order to have room to get around, and again, looking closely at this photograph, it looks like there must be at least 3 feet on either side of that thing to get around it. So that makes it at most 20 feet long. Maybe
the ship?
The lifeboat.
Yeah.
It makes it at most 20 feet long. So I don't know.
Well, what I think of is if you ever read Moby Dick, or you've ever seen any of the Hollywood reenactments of it, they cram, I think it's about 8 guys into a little boat to go out and chase a whale. And it's tight quarters, but they do. You can do it.
On necessity?
Necessity is the mother of all inventions. So.
Yeah. But it just seems to me that, again, it makes getting into the lifeboat, that small of a boat with 10 people, it makes it seem like that much more unpalatable of an option.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying I can see it being possible. If you got to get out, you got to get out. You got to do what you got to make sure you're not left behind.
Yeah, you got to get out. But it's still a kind of a head scratcher. Why would you leave? So the alcohol fumes, the explosion. It's all possible, but it doesn't really make sense.
Really, I kind of think we might be out of theories on this one.
Yeah,
I think so.
There's no, even though the alcohol fumes theory seems to be the strongest one out there, everybody seems to like it. Even it's got its holes. It doesn't really entirely make sense. Again, like you were saying, why would everybody leave the boat?
Yeah.
Because even with the danger of explosion or whatever, leaving the boat's pretty dangerous.
Everybody
too.
leaving the boat, right?
Especially everybody leaving the boat. Yeah.
Well, in the end, I mean, it was a bit of a tragedy, obviously, because the crew died, and it really kind of sang the end of the Mary Celeste, because she didn't last much longer after that, did she?
She lasted about another 13 years, I believe.
Yeah, and then somebody scuttled her?
Yeah, somebody like ran her aground with some shoals in Haiti as a part of an insurance scam.
Yeah, he was trying to collect insurance on it.
Yeah, she was not a good luck ship.
Maybe that's what this was. This was an attempt, a really ill-fated attempt to collect insurance.
Man, no, I don't think that somebody would say, "Hey, I've got my wife and kid on board, but you know what? I'm just gonna sink this thing. They'll be fine."
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, things like disease outbreaks, things like that. I mean, those are kind of compelling, except there'd be entries in the log. So that's
You would think so.
And like that, I'm compelled to think like, say they're cruising along and they find another ghost ship, and so they stop. They put the lifeboat out so they can paddle over to check this empty ship out, and then for some reason they never make it back to their own ship.
Yeah.
Now this makes no sense either, because I mean obviously they all just go hop on another ship. I mean it must have been one hell of a nice ship.
Yeah,
but
not everybody leaves.
Yeah, so I'm always liking the double sort of ghost ship idea. That's kind of cool.
The
double ghost ship.
One ghost ship met another ghost ship in a
Yeah,
bar.
yeah. So there was one that I was reading about when I was doing some research. This is months ago, and there was like some ghost ship where, and this might have been entirely fictional. I didn't have enough time to research it, but so a ship comes upon this abandoned, empty sailing ship, and so they go aboard. Nobody is there. It's just sitting there empty. They put some crew on board this ship because it's a nice ship. They want to salvage it, claim salvage title, and so they head off sort of in tandem to wherever they're going. I don't remember where. And then there's a little bit of foul weather. They kind of lose track of each other, and then eventually the first ship finds the ghost ship again.
But it's empty again.
But the crew is gone again.
Yes, I do remember that story was in the research that was up when we were doing the Aurang Medan. That was one of those little anecdotal stories.
That was probably one I came across. And then at that point,
Roy told us that one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then, but then at that point comes the really tricky part, which is persuading still more members of your crew to go aboard.
No.
Screw you, Cap.
No, thank you.
No, not happening, sir.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, so out of all the possible ones, let me see what we got here. I'm going to go with Dalek.
It's kind of like Dalek.
Yeah, God, if I have to choose one, do I have to choose one?
Nah.
Because none of these just seem plausible enough to me.
Fair.
Yeah.
They're not cohesive enough.
Yeah, and I understand that this is 150 years ago, or dang near 140 years ago, and so the pieces have fallen apart in the retelling. But it just, I know, I can't see any of it being credible enough.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that we haven't thought of that swept all of those people off in a hurry. I mean, who knows? Maybe they changed over and hopped onto a Carnival cruise. I don't know, but
that was a mistake because the Carnival cruise broke down.
Well, obviously we know now that was their mistake, but at the time they didn't know it was a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really
don't know either.
I can't make a choice.
I can speculate that perhaps that broken rope was actually an anchor rope, and maybe they found some deserted cool island and they decided to all go ashore. They anchored, but
have a little holiday.
Yeah, have a little holiday, but why they would have left several sails set as opposed to furling on their sails. That kind of shoots the hell out of that. Why would they do that? I mean, it's possible. I mean, if they only wanted to set one anchor, they could just put a few sails up, and imagine the wind is really, really light.
So you're letting the wind hold you against
against the anchor.
The seabed, yeah.
You go ashore, you're partying down on shore, But, what captain would leave his ship completely empty under those circumstances? Yeah.
That's the thing that always just gets me.
Yeah. And so once again, there's always some little hitch in all these different theories.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
There is just nothing that can explain, and that's where, the food contamination one, in a sense, it's almost compelling because because it's just insane and stupid enough to do what they did. That would kind of make you think maybe, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
it could've been.
and you know, it's not uncommon, or there are stories, I should say not uncommon, but there are stories of people who are stuck at sea and they get things that are tainted, or worse off, they drink seawater and they start to hallucinate.